and welcome to Food for Thought. Now, I have not been doing Food for Thought, but I thought that it was definitely needed to be brought back. So every Monday, starting today, you can expect a new Food for Thought. So today's topic is childhood trauma. Now, this is such a deep conversation that if you are not sitting down at this time, please have a seat, maybe grab some tissues or whatever you need to do. Now, I will tell you that not everyone is ready to face this topic. A lot of us have either swept issues related to our childhood trauma under the rug. We've locked it in a vault that even power tools couldn't break. We have allowed these feelings to remain dormant because they're not going. You have psyched yourself out by saying, hey, I don't care. That happened when I was younger. It's whatever. I'm older. I put my big girl panties on and I moved on. It don't affect me. But guess what? If you haven't dealt with it, you haven't gotten any type of therapy or any type of, just anything to help you move on in this situation, then best believe you are doing yourself a very huge disservice, number one. And you have done nothing but lie to yourself. You may not think about it every single day, but those feelings are dormant. They're not going. That's why when someone brings up a topic related to your trauma, you're triggered. If you're watching a movie and it's related to your trauma, you're triggered. Anything that's going to basically make you have thoughts down that road, it's going to trigger these feelings. And maybe that's when you go to your bottle, go to your drugs, get angry, and all these type of things. That's not helping you. It's not helping you. It's not helping your family, your friends, people who are around you, and more than likely you're taking this out on. So I have a paper. It got real, okay? I had to write this stuff down, and honestly, guys, I really try to make these videos under 5 minutes because we don't like to spend too much time, and we like to, get in, get out, and keep it moving to the next thing. But for certain things, we just have to take our time and, address appropriately and not quickly. So I definitely would tell you, like I said before, grab a seat because this is going to be very uncomfortable for the victims, but even more so for the abusers. Now, when you hear the word abuser, if you fall in that category, you're on the defense right now. And it's okay. That's a harsh word. I don't want you to end the video right now because you're in your feelings and you feel talked down on, or like this is about to make fingers get pointed to you because you're the bad guy or you're the bad girl. It's not about that. It's about us figuring out how to deal with those feelings that you're feeling right now and face them, because as long as you don't face them, those feelings will always have control over you. And you will always run away because of that negative feeling that you're feeling right now. The guilt, the shame, the embarrassment. But even if you are an abuser, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not also a victim. Because 9 times out of 10, no one wakes up and decide, hey, I want to be an abuser, a physical abuser, a sexual abuser, a mental abuser, an emotional abuser. Something led to that. And more than likely, you were victimized yourself. So we have to figure out what is the root. Why, what has happened? Okay. So, 9 times out of 10, it stems from your childhood. We have to think back. When you hear the word childhood, you're either going to smile or you're going to get uncomfortable. You're going to get angry. It's a lot of different emotions that are going to come to your mind just from saying the word childhood. How do you feel right now that we're exploring this? Because a lot of times we place the band-aid over our wound and we've never quite let it scab over. Now, when you have a band-aid on a wound, it's because the wound is still fresh. It's possibly still bleeding. You know, the scar has yet to scab over where the band-aid is now not needed. And that's what we do. We put the band-aid over top and then we keep it moving. And if you haven't given your wound time to scab over, then guess what? When you remove your band-aid, the wound is still fresh. It doesn't matter that it's been 6 years. It doesn't matter that it's been 15 years. That wound is still fresh because you have not taken the proper steps to allow it to scab over. And a lot of times we have this misconception that, oh, when we seek therapy or this and the third, then the wound is going to go away. It's never going to go away. Trauma is exactly that. It's trauma. You're traumatized from something. That's an extreme thing. Whatever you went through and happened to you, that was extreme. You're never going to forget about that. You know, this is why they say forgive, but you'll never forget. I don't care how much therapy, this, that, and the third that you go through. The misconception is therapy is not to make you forget. It's not to make it's going to go away. No matter what, you're going to be triggered. But how do you handle your triggers? If you just have a band-aid, then when you have triggers, you get angry. You're crying. You're having emotional breakdowns still. However, when you've gotten the proper therapy and you've spent the proper amount of time on dealing, then you are able to, with your scab, be able to have a moment of clarity, have a moment of, you know, just feeling grateful that, hey, you know what, I was in this place, I've learned from it, I've grown from it, and I'm able to move on. When you're not associating feelings that get you all out of bounds, your day could have been going great, and now all of a sudden your day is ruined. You know, that one little thing and you're shook. It has not scabbed over, baby. It's still a band-aid there, and you have to take the proper steps to allow it to scab. And a lot of times we feel like it's easier to just keep it bottled, not talk about it, not address it. And like I said, and specifically to the abusers, a lot of times we want to talk about what we did because we're so embarrassed, we're so ashamed, we feel so guilty, but you harboring those feelings doesn't make it go away. The weight of carrying it, it just gets heavier and heavier. And what happens is, if I did something and I have wronged my child, bringing them up, and I know I've done something, they were there. They know what happened. So every time we have an interaction and you know, and years have passed, just because we're not talking about it doesn't mean that there's not an elephant in the room. Basically, y'all have established a relationship now with a barrier because there's an elephant in the room. Every time that you're with, you know, whoever it is, there is an extension that's just being ignored because it's more comfortable for both parties. It's comfortable for the victim, it's more comfortable for the abuser. Because we don't want to make any waves. We don't want to really address it. We don't want to talk about it. But we both know it happened. We were both there. So it's not like, okay, me keeping this to myself and not addressing it and doing an apology or doing whatever needs to be done. You know, it's like I got you make it seem like it gives you a start over card because, you know, we still cool, like, wow, okay, I was able to do this and we're able to be okay. But in reality, they never actually got over it. They're never okay. And all those smiles and hanging out, it was fake. Not saying that there's no love there, but, you know, it still has the bitterness inside of it. It's like eating a cake. And the cake is good, but maybe you put too much, or maybe some type of ingredient that was never meant to be inside fell in. But there's some kind of aftertaste that doesn't quite taste right. It's like, the first couple bites is good, but what is this aftertaste? The aftertaste that you're tasting is the emotions that has not been dealt with. So one of the things that a lot of people have went through is a form of physical, mental, emotional abuse. Now, I'm talking about the adults here, with spouses. Now, maybe for whatever reason, you guys have gotten into this familiarity of dealing in that way when you get upset and it gets into physical altercation, name calling, all kind of degrading things that you guys are doing to each other. And meanwhile, the kids are on the sideline. They're seeing all of this. They're going through this with you. And that this is not only impacting the kids, it's impacting you guys as well. Because see, a lot of times we focus on what is this doing to the children? What is this doing to the children? But this is doing something to you guys as well. This is doing something to, and then the trauma that it's putting on their spouse, and we won't just say the woman, because some men are in physical abusive relationships as well, where they're getting beat on by the woman. So whatever is going on with the spouse, that's going to be a trickle effect, because now they're emotionally broken, so we want to always go straight to the child, but that spouse is emotionally broken. And then you have to care and give care to these kids, and then you're not even all the way put together yourself, so, and then they're seeing this, and then if this is the relationship that they've seen for the bulk of their lives, they're going to end up getting to a relationship where they don't really have a true concept of what real love is supposed to look like. Which is why a lot of times, if it's your son, he may end up repeating the cycle, doing it to his girl. If it's the daughter, she may end up repeating the cycle and getting into a relationship where someone's doing it to her because, it was good enough for my mom, so I guess it can be good enough for me. It was good enough for my dad, so I guess it can be good enough for me. And at the same time, it may not even be that they get into a relationship that's physical. It may just be the fact that they just truly don't really know what a balanced relationship looks like. So what do? Well, they have some type of, like they know, okay, I know it can't be this. I know that what's going on in my house, that can't be right. Okay, and how I know that can't be right is because when I watch movies, now see, this is what happens. Then they start going they go from one extreme to another extreme. So in the house, you have a bad extreme where things is happening that should not be happening in the most negative way possible. And then you look at movies and stuff and you're like, well, dang, and then that gives you another false ideology because it's a movie. So you think that now, okay, it must be how it's supposed to be from the movies. And then now they're building bars up that's like way movie, like a movie type of bar. Sure, you're supposed to be a certain way, but it ain't going to be all roses and peaches and all this type of stuff all the time. Just like it ain't going to be chaotic and fighting and all this stuff all the time. So they don't have the picture of what a balance looks like. So it's just, you have to really realize the effect when you're seeing certain things and you just assume, oh, well, they know this isn't good. They know that this is not supposed to be happening. How does that sound? So you're going to say, oh, they know this is not supposed to be happening, but wouldn't that start with you? So you're expecting a 10-year-old to know better, but you don't? Of course, they're not going to be able to do better than what you do. You're the adult and you're not doing better. When a child is going through physical abuse, this is going to shape them. This is going to shape their personality. if you're living in a house with someone who's instilling a lot of fear in you, it's going to start to alter your personality. You may have been a very outgoing, outspoken, center of attention, extroverted type child. And then you change. Now you're dealing with anxiety, fear, feeling like you can't really just be this social butterfly that you once were, because when someone is putting that much intimidation inside of you, there's going to be a chemical reaction to that, and you're going to change. Your whole personality is going to change. One of the things that we don't realize as parents is that if you have exposed your kids to physical abuse, then it doesn't always necessarily end when the kid moves out of the house. If you are still in a relationship where there is physical abuse involved, then you have to, at a certain point, you have to take that out of your relationship, out of you and your kids' relationship. You can't expose. When they were in your house and they were growing up with it, you couldn't really hide it because they were there. So they had no choice but to deal with it. But once they're grown and they move out of the house, if you're still trying to have a relationship with them and they have tried to heal from that, the effects that has had on them, how can they possibly heal when you're calling them and saying, hey, this person, still got into a fight with me and I'm in the hospital, or this, that, and the third. You're still bringing that into their life. That part of your relationship has to be no more. And if you are the child and your parent is still involving you in that part of the relationship, you have to take a stand. You have to say, you know what? I didn't have a choice when I was a kid. And right now, I have my own family. I have to be strong and fight my own demons with my own child and this, that, and the third. And I can't deal with that anymore. I really want the best for you. And you have to want the best for yourself. And if you're not able to see that and deal with that right now, then that part of your relationship that you want to stay in, you have to keep that away from me, because that's affecting my healing process. I can't, because a lot of times you go and try to go to their aid, and then what happens? They kiss and make up, and now you're the bad guy. So you can only do that so many times. And so, just because the kid is not living there anymore, is not right for you to still include them in that type of drama that they're trying to heal from. And you're still incorporating that part onto them. Is not right. You deal with that behind closed doors, because that's what you're choosing to still deal with. One thing that we don't realize is sometimes you get so caught up in seeing the struggle that your parents went through that you promise yourself, I'm never going to do it. I never want to be that person. I never want to go through what they went through. I never want to, allow my kids to have to suffer the way how I suffered. I never want to. You make all these promises to yourself that you're never going to do this, you're never going to do that. And then if it happens that you end up in a relationship where a lot of those same things that you promised were not going to happen and they happen, that has a big impact on you, because the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to feel like a failure. You're going to feel like a failure for yourself, for letting your own self down, for the promises that you made yourself. Then you're going to feel like a failure to your kids for the fact that you did exactly what you said you didn't want to do. Then you're going to grow resentment and anger and hate, because you're going to say, you know what, if it wasn't for my parents, then maybe I wouldn't have did this. It's their fault. It's because they exposed me to this or showed me this, until you're able to take the ownership and say, hey, you know what, I placed myself in a situation and it didn't play out the way how I thought it was going to, or how I wanted it to. And, a lot of times that's what another thing is where problems be. We like to hold on to the victim card. A lot of us do. Why? Because it's easier. It's easier to play the victim. Because, and it's not, when I say play the victim, I'm not downplaying because you are a victim. But what I'm saying is it's easier to stay in that. It's easier to stay in that feeling. Being like, okay, this is what happened. What can I do now? What can I do to move forward to make sure that I don't suffer any further from what I was set up, with? We don't want to take accountability for the fact that we don't have to stay there. We don't have to be stuck. It may be hard to get out of it, but you are capable. Once we sit down and say, okay, you know what? This started me off rough, but, I didn't graduate because of this, but I can still go back to school. I didn't, get to do whatever because of this, but I can do X, Y, and Z. One of the ones that is very difficult for us to talk about at times is when there is sexual abuse in the family. And a lot of times we don't know about it, but there are the times when we do know about it. And there's a lot of reasons why you could have been sexually abused and it was swept under the rug. Or maybe you're the person, the parent, who knows your child was being sexually abused and allowed it to be swept under the rug. So a lot of times, for one, you might be in denial. You might be in denial that this can't be happening. Your family, as far as you was concerned, was, not picture perfect, but that's not the thing that comes to your mind when you're thinking about your family. And then it's like, okay, once you come out of the denial and you realize that this is really happening or happened, now it's like dealing with humiliation, the public. What is everybody going to think? All this type of stuff. And then it just depends. Let's say, you're in a very religious family. How is this going to look? They're a preacher. They're this, they're that, So a lot of times it just gets swept under the rug, and now you're forced to hold family secrets. And that has a lasting effect, not just on the child, but the whole family, and everyone is just acting like it never happened. A lot of times we don't even realize that, they say sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Really, whoever came up with that, they really weren't thinking. And for all the people who kept it going weren't thinking. People commit suicide every day over words. People, are still having a hard time moving on in life because of words that are still playing in their head. Their parents telling them, you're dumb, you're retarded, you'll never make it. Well, how come your sister can do this and you can't, which is a whole nother subject with sibling rivalry. You can't compare and contrast your kids. Some kids are going to have be easier to do some things. Some kids are not. Some kid might be a little bit more behaved. The other kid is not. So understand that, you're going to love your kids differently. But you should never hold a higher standard for one kid than the other, be more attached to one kid than the other. The other kid is going to feel that. And then now it's going to separate them two. They're going to have, a little thing going on, sibling rivalry. And then it doesn't always stop in childhood. It continues into adulthood because those feelings are carried over. Now they're not able to even have a healthy adult relationship because there's always that jealousy, envious, or just like feeling like, they can never understand why are you valued so much more than me, and we both came out of the same womb and I should be loved equally, and we don't realize the lasting effect that they have on our children when we do that. A lot of times, the first child suffers with the eldest child syndrome. First of all, you're the first, so you're like the practice kid. So 9 times out of the 10, all the mistakes are made on you, so that by the time the second one comes, now they have a more routine way of going about and doing things. Sometimes the eldest has to take on a lot of responsibilities, more responsibilities than a child should be given. That will pave a way on how they are as a person in their adulthood, because if you've been someone who since 12 or 10, you read these stories where they're like, oh, I was 9 years old and I had to watch my 2-year-old and my 1-year-old sister, and I was changing diapers at the 2-month, and you're like, yo, you were like 8 years old, and sometimes people, whether it's circumstances or just out of pure ignorance, leave responsibilities on these children and then wonder why they have this type of attitude where now they don't even feel like a kid anymore because they're doing adult things. So now all of a sudden their attitude switch gear. You're like, oh, you're walking around here acting like you've grown. Well, actually, I am acting like I'm grown because you're treating me like I'm grown, or it may be a thing where they're going to start holding resentment towards their actual siblings. Why? Because they can't even enjoy them as sisters and brothers. They're looking at them as nuisance kids, like, how we feel when we get annoyed, when the kids are bothering you, nagging you, you're like, oh my gosh, just go in your room, I need a minute, and that's the type of feelings that they have because they can't enjoy them as siblings. That's like literally their kids, and then wonder why they're bossing you around and you act like you're my mom. Well, yeah, because that's how the responsibilities have been handed over to me, so they have the mommy syndrome, even though they're actually the kid. And, you hear like the real hardcore stories where maybe if the mom or the dad is on drugs and they're not providing and there are the parents that's actually disappearing for days at a time, these stories are real too. And so now the eldest, they're trying to do things to try to get food in the house, and maybe they're going out on the street and getting into things they shouldn't because it's 3 of us in this house and we haven't seen mom and dad for a couple days. I mean, these are stories that really happen. I mean, how much of an impact do you really think that that's going to have on someone's future? When they've been struggling and having to face things that they should have never had to deal with since they were kids. You hear stories about children, for whatever reasons, run away. When you're a runaway and you run away from home and you ran away multiple times or even one time, that impacts you. You never know what type of situations you're going to endure when you're out in the streets, because in that moment, for whatever reason, you're mad or you can't take any more of what's going on in the house, and you're like, you get that mentality of, hey, you know what, whatever happens out there can't be worse than what's going on in here. And sometimes you don't even care. You're like, hey, whatever, and you just deal with it. And then sometimes you might actually get caught in a situation where you're like, wow, this was not what I was expecting. Now you're kidnapped. Someone actually, takes you, or whatever. It's like one situation go from bad to worse. These is so many different experiences. I mean, there's thousands. I couldn't sit here and hit every single one if I tried. Some people, because of trauma or because of not being a certain way, they don't even think about it. They just do repeat what was done to them. So if they had parents who didn't really say I love you, weren't really touchy-feely, giving hugs and kisses, they don't even realize that's not normal per se. Like, it's very normal to express your emotions physically, verbally. So, I mean, from birth, I always tell my kids, I love you, give them hugs, give them kisses, this, that, and the third. That's like a natural maternal thing. But it doesn't always go that way. And you don't really think that deep, I guess, when you're like, well, I give you food, I give you clothes, I give you shelter, I take you out, so you know I love you. I shouldn't have to tell you. But when you connect the two, the words and the actions, you know, showing, hey, come here, give me a hug just because, you know, like little things, you know, you'd be surprised how many people are impacted and say, wow, you know, I don't even remember my mom or dad ever saying I love you or ever giving me a hug. I've never hugged my mom or I've never kissed my mom. Now you have to think about people who are raised in foster care. I mean, how heavy of a tone does that set for you? So that in itself is a very difficult pill to swallow. I think that even though there's always circumstances, it always come down to the kid interpreted as I wasn't good enough. You know, you didn't want me. And it could be a lot of different reasons. They could have been a young parent. They could have been on drugs. You know, it could have been a lot. Maybe they were raped and they weren't, you know, trying to even deal with the trauma of having a kid with a person who raped them, you know. So it could be so many different reasons. And we, as a kid, you're not focused on the reasons. You're focused on, why am I in foster care? Why do I live with my uncle? Why do I live with my aunt, my cousin, or this person or that person? Why am I in the system? If I'm not good enough for my own mom, how could I ever be good enough for anyone? You know, so that in itself will set you up mentally, you know, in a depressing type state. So, you know, we've gone over so many different things that impact us as kids. And like I said, it's so much more, but our time is so limited and I don't want to make this too long. And the purpose of this video is not solely to express the different type of traumas. It's to figure out, one, are you a victim? Are you an abuser? Are you both? Have you dealt with it? How have you dealt with it? Have you put a Band-Aid on it? Or did it actually truly scab over? Can you talk openly about it without crying, without being angry, without feeling embarrassed, without feeling ashamed, without feeling guilty? Have you put those feelings down so that you could truly deal with the situation? So I wanted to, and this is the most important part, talk about how do we move forward in a healthy way? Because running to alcohol and drugs and sex and this, that, and third, that ain't going to help. That's a Band-Aid, okay? It's a Band-Aid method. What are the ways that we can scab this over once and for all? So if you have ways that I have not mentioned, please comment because it'll be beneficial to somebody out there. You have to pray and you have to hand it over to God. Nobody gonna help you carry that burden or even eliminate it 100%. He's the only person who could do that 100% and eliminate it. You need to pray, get on your knees, talk it over, and hand it over to God. You have to face the people who wronged you. You know, you can't sit around these people and know that in your heart you got anxiety because I'm sitting here, I'm being fake with this person, knowing deep down inside I'm still holding these emotions. I'm still feeling some sort of way. There's still an extension. There's still an elephant in the room. How can you have a relationship with somebody and it's such hardcore feelings that you're holding on to? If you're doing that, you need to stop right now. Face it. And you have to do it before they die. Because a lot of times you think, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get around to it. I'm going to get around to it. And the next thing you know, guess what? You have an invitation to a funeral. And then you never was able to make peace with that person. And y'all grieve together and get over and, you know, and make peace together and go about it. So now, if you didn't take the opportunity to do it while they were alive, now you got to figure out, well, how do I get this off of me? Because now they're gone. Well, what I would say to do is maybe you can sit down, write a heartfelt letter, spill all of those emotions that you were going to say onto a paper. And then I would say to read it out loud and then burn it. You know, like you got it out. You took some breaths, you cleared it out, you said it, you said it out loud, and and then you burnt it, which was you letting it go. But if you can, do it the first way. Do it while they're alive. Exercise is a great form of, number one, staying healthy and staying in shape, but it also allows you to release stress. Whether it's low impact exercise like some yoga, stretching, or some regular exercise, or you could even go for a walk. Find a place that you really like a trail that's really inviting, very, very therapeutic, and go for a walk, blow some steam off, collect your thoughts. Even find a place that's like your little heaven on earth. I've always wanted to visit a cabin, and stuff. I haven't done that yet. It's on my to-do list. But, whenever you see those pictures we went to a cabin, and all you see is the woods and, just earthy, just like a peaceful, wow, away from it all. Away from the internet, away from people, away from the noise, away from the drama, away from the stress, and just really have a moment to yourself, somewhere you can have your own little piece of heaven on earth. And it don't even have to be as far as going to a cabin. You can actually make a room in your house, or if you don't have an open room, then a little piece of your house where you say, okay, this little personal corner is my meditation area, where I set it all up, where you have some candles, maybe a little they had those little sound effects, or maybe you can have a waterfall, or have somewhere where you can meditate, and just be calm and release all of that stress and energy. Make new friends, make new friends, sometimes out with the old and with the new. Make new friends, go out, just kind of take a step away from old routines and do something new, something exciting. Of course, there's always therapy, whether it's by yourself or even with a friend or family to help you through it, or even with that person or people, who's wronged you. Going to group meetings. Sometimes just going to an actual group meeting as opposed to a therapy one-on-one session, a group meeting with a bunch of people who's in a same situation as you, because we all know that we are not the only ones, but it's something about actually being in a room with other people where you can go back and forth and relate off of each other. Like I said, we all have those moments when we have triggers. So having someone that you can call and talk to during those moments to just vent if need be, that could be a way, so that just as quick as those feelings came into you, you were able to dump it out and keep it moving and not let them just sit and build up and, feel some sort of way. I'm a very artistic person. So something as simple as writing poetry, music, art, coloring, all these types of things, they're therapeutic. Doing stuff like that when you're feeling a session coming on, and you just need to relax yourself. And I know a lot of you are like, just roll a joint, but like I said, that is definitely would be considered a band-aid, guys. They're not just gonna run to the beer, to the weed, to the liquor. We're finding the therapeutic ways that are healthy and that it's gonna actually be calming for our spirit in a more positive way. But what I would actually say is the most important thing to do, even more important than therapy and anything at all, besides God, because, having that relationship and being able to talk to Him is the most important thing you could ever do. But second place would be anything on that list that I just said, is getting your life on track. And the reason why I say this is because I think that's the part that makes us feel so angry and so bitter, because it's when this stuff happened to you, especially if it slowed you down in a way, because now you got, it stopped you from doing this or stopped you from doing that, stopped you in your tracks or this and the third. It's like an anger and a resentment, because it's you feel stuck or like cheated or like you can't move forward or you can't do this or feel that. So to be able to sit down, write goals out, and then actually achieve them, I mean, what bigger goal can you accomplish? Because you could sit here and you could say, you know what, this did not stop me, this didn't stop my shine, this did not slow me down. I have still came and I have still conquered, even with all of this baggage that I'm dragging. So to be able to, like, when you don't do that, that's what makes you angry and stuff. And you're like, you know, if it wasn't for this, I would have been able to go to school. If it wasn't for this, I would be doing this. If it wasn't. So take that part away. Take the part of if it wasn't for this. When you eliminate that part and then you still get everything done as if that never even happened, that's when you start to feel like, damn, I did it. Regardless, like I did it, you know? And so I would just say, whatever your goals are, whatever it is that you have on your mind, start knocking them down. And next Monday, I will have a topic that actually addresses that last thing that we just said, which was, like I said, as far as moving forward with your business plans, stop being stuck. Whether it's from the baggage that we just talked about, or sometimes it ain't even about that. Sometimes we are just such heavy procrastinators and we need help trying to figure out how to get to that next level, how to move those thoughts from out of our mind onto the paper, into the world. You know, so join me next Monday for a Motivational Monday where we will talk about doing what we need to do to get our lives on track, get these business plans going. And like I said, if you have anything to say, to add to this conversation, please feel free to comment it. And Friday, I will be going live. So that way we can have a live interaction and conversation about this topic. And I will do that every week. Whatever video we talk about on Monday, I will go live on Friday so that we can get some live interaction and conversations going. And I truly understand if it's a very sensitive topic and you're not quite ready to open up yet, but at least you have something to think about. And if there are things that you need to address, then why wait another second? You need to get moving on any of the things that we talked about as far as getting yourself to the next level of where you need to be.